Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, your weekly dose of insider DevOps trends, AWS news, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. It's December 6th, 2023. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be your host. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We are a DevOps accelerator for startups that helps teams who are overwhelmed with AWS. We do this by using our over 200 plus Terraform modules that have been battle tested and downloaded over 10 million times. No matter where you find yourself on this journey, we're here to help your startup launch better products so that you can nail your value delivery every time. And if you or your team has been banging your head against the wall with underperforming infrastructure, just head over to cloudposse.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and we'll chart a roadmap for success for you. Worst case, you end up with a clear roadmap for shoring up your infrastructure. Best case, we co-build it with you and your team and empower you in 90 days or less. So how can you maximize today's session? First off, our format is very informal. Engage as much as you'd like, ask questions. And if you're curious about any of our open source tools or modules, go for it. For those on the recording, we host these calls live, so don't miss out. Just go join us by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. Now, I do have one ask. If you find any portion of today's office hours valuable, please share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse to find the video, or send us a short testimonial about the value you're getting in Slack. Just go to slack.cloudposse.com. Remember, we're not just creating content here, we're trying to build a community, and we can't do that without your help. So with that started, let's jump into some news and announcements that I found. All right. First one is, it was shared, I saw Matt Gowie found it on the HashiCorp blog. So at HashiConf, they announced an update to the Terraform cloud product, adding a concept of a stack. Stacks are, kind of common industry terms to represent a collection of resources. So that concept is natively supported now in Terraform Cloud, allowing you to pass information between different root modules. They talk about the organization of that and how to set that up in this document and introduce the concepts. Has anyone already started dabbling with stacks in Terraform Cloud? Not yet, it sounds like. All right. Oops. Another small announcement was, yeah, that Gmail account you set up a few years ago, if you haven't been using it, it might get purged. Google has been going through and deleting accounts that have been inactive for at least 2 years. So if you have any accounts that you really don't want to lose, time to go and log in. Now, it might have already been deleted since I think this was supposed to happen on Friday. Last Friday.
That part is particularly annoying because a bunch of services that Google offers tell you that you can't have them attached to a Google address that's part of a Google workspace. It has to be part of a Gmail account. Like Nest is an example of that. If you use your Nest account. So I had a couple of accounts that were specifically for that type of thing. And I forgot to log into one of them, and then it went away. So
oh, really?
Yeah.
How did you find out?
I went to log into the service and it was gone, and I was like,
after 2 years, you just spontaneously decided you were going to log in, or after you saw the announcement?
Yeah. No. After I saw the announcement, okay. I remembered. I thought I got them all, and then I remembered one more, and then I was like, "Oh, let me go see if I can log in," and it was gone. And I was like, "Oh no, that's not cool." So then I basically had to email the company telling them what happened and trying to prove my identity to them.
Okay, but it was a reversible thing. There was a
yeah, but because the company intervened, their support agreed to switch my login to a different do a different like
Oh, okay. So that account was
login.
restricted, but they switched that product login to another one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Verification makes sense.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, did you have mail forwarding set up on that account and you just
No,
weren't logging in, or you didn't even have that?
no, I mean, I literally only created it specifically
Yeah.
for the one thing that I couldn't log into, and I didn't want to tie it to another Google account that I had for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah, I'm
annoying.
curious. I'm curious if that applies to mail forwarding because I have several accounts like that.
Exactly. Yeah. If anybody knows if that applies to mail forwarding, because I have a lot of accounts, just like he said, that forward the mail, I have no reason to log into them, and I've set up delegated other accounts to send mail. So that's interesting. All right. Next announcement was one you shared with me, Matt. I think. Which was a new, or no, maybe I found this one. I don't know where I found this one.
Yeah, I also saw this. I can't remember what I shared and what I didn't share. So
yeah. This was a little bit confusing to me because, well, as is not uncommon in AWS, they introduced one service that sounds completely redundant with another service instead of expanding the scope of the other service. So now there is the what are they calling it? Why am I drawing? AWS
Fault injection service.
No, I think no. So there's already a tool called Fault Injection Service, which was released like last year or something. This is yet another service, but I believe under a different name. No.
I don't remember the name, but I know that the new functionality was that it can simulate like entire regional outputs or just certain AZs or entire like accounts kind of thing. It was pretty I don't remember what it was. Basically just expanded capabilities.
Okay, so was it just an expansion of FIS then?
I think so.
Okay, then that makes sense. Okay, I take back what I said. I was wrong. And I think previously it supported more like full outages of a region or host level degradations like of disk, memory, and CPU. To Matt's point, this adds availability zone failures.
And also I think the big announcement here was that it was multi-account now. So you can actually simulate like failures across more than one of your accounts at the same time and then see what happens. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Then this one here was expanding capabilities with a new application signals preview. Matt, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I think basically this is now Amazon kind of giving you the four golden signals of DevOps thing from the site for the SRE handbook that that's kind of famous out there. They basically created a dashboard to be able to see those things kind of out of the box for your services using CloudWatch and a few other things. And I think that if you've looked now, if you log into the console, you're constantly being prompted to create a new application as well, which I think is tying into that. So I think they're trying to do a lot of cross-service visibility things and surfacing that. In my my speculation, although I don't know, is that this has something to do with with Datadog taking a lot of revenue away from AWS that they think that they can keep in-house by offering some of the basic features that Datadog offers. So I think this one also has SLO yeah, this is the one that has there it is, SLOs, and focus on metrics that are important to the business. So now you can do all of these things um, within AWS. You don't have to go to a third-party service to do it.
Cool. Yeah, look forward to checking that out.
Yeah, and I think if you read the last sentence of or second to last sentence of the first paragraph, that actually is telling you like they have second to last one before that, they're having standardized metrics such as volume, latency, and errors for each of your applications with pre-built dashboards. So they've already kind of, depending on the services that you're using under the hood, they've already defined what the appropriate metrics are that that map to each of those, the golden signals like volume, throughput and latency and errors and all those kind of things, which seems like it will save you time. I haven't really looked at this extensively, so I don't really have a full review of it yet, but it sounds promising.
Awesome. Let's see, next one was something that I was digging around trying to figure out, like, what the heck, anybody doing a lot of GitHub Actions in a mono repo, you're going to run into this problem. It's not a problem, but this limitation that your GitHub Actions are all, they have to be in the .github workflows directory, and they can't exist anywhere else in the file system subtree, even within the subtree of .github workflows. So you end up maybe with 20, 30 files, all different workflows there, and your only option is to come up with some naming convention to try and tell them apart. Well, fortunately, I found somebody tagged another developer here, Andrew Kim, and this is actively being worked on. Actually, I think this was a product manager or product owner. And it was supposed to come out this quarter, but now it's looking like next quarter. I guess I don't care so much, as I know that I'm content with the fact that if it is coming out and being worked on, we can plan for that. Also interesting is this is not on the GitHub Actions roadmap anywhere. Maybe it's considered too small of a feature.
Can I ask, based on that chat there,
Yeah.
It just says that he owns it and it's being worked on, and he'll post more when it's ready for customers. Well,
yeah,
I'm curious, what leads you to believe that it's actually being worked, like,
oh, there was
developed? Oh, is there a different thing in theirs?
Yeah, there was more.
Oh, okay.
Here, sorry, I didn't expand that. Don't have
Oh,
any.
yeah, there it is.
We're working on some UI improvements for the workflow list, and I wanted to include this, but then I realized that it needed to be separately. So hoping to dig into it next quarter.
Yeah.
And that was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, cool.
So
The first one didn't leave me with a lot of hope. It was like, yeah, we're working on it.
yeah.
But this one sounds better. So,
And I didn't confirm he is actually in GitHub staff. So
yeah. Ooh, they have a unique badge. I never noticed that before.
oh yeah, look at that. That's probably good. Oh, and look, they have the same problem we have. Anybody else suffering from this right now?
Yeah. Emojis stop showing up on GitHub.
Yeah. Next announcement was this. Anybody who's worked with some more mature CI platforms like Circle CI, the ability to exec into your jobs or steps is invaluable for speeding up the debug process. So GitHub is actually working on that. It's apparently in beta, estimated for this quarter. So speak to your GitHub Enterprise account rep if you want to get added to that, maybe.
Yeah. This quarter meaning the next 2.5 weeks.
Well, I mean, in beta. Says, so
Yeah.
I assume that means, yeah. that it's actually then developed to some degree. Unfortunately, this is a enterprise feature, it seems like, so pony up. Last one related to that. I was kind of reviewing the roadmap, trying to get excited about what's happening. I was excited about this, but then I saw status future, so that to me is basically someday. Moving from having been planned in 22 and then this year as well, and just kept getting kicked further down. This addresses one. Sorry.
Sorry, I was unmuted and I cleared my throat.
Oh, okay. So this would address one of the big security concerns with GitHub Actions. You're basically running all of these actions within your own code space and runtime with access to that privileged information. And unless you're pinning to a SHA, and I mean, unless you actually inspected the code at that SHA that you also pin to, you really don't have many assurances of what that code is doing while it has access to your code. So this adds the ability to publish your actions. This would add the ability to publish your actions to a registry where then, they're as immutable as you trust GitHub would keep them immutable. And by pinning to those immutable artifacts, you can be more assured that things won't get injected, supply chain injection attacks. Built on, I'm guessing GitHub packages, but I don't think it actually goes.
Yeah, it says in the first sentence OCI, or second sentence OCI on top of GitHub packages.
All right, it's cool to see
and
how
I think
universal.
Yeah, I think it looks like if you scroll down, it looks like it had previously been on, so they removed it from the GitHub Enterprise 3.10 roadmap and put it on the public roadmap. So seems interesting. So maybe this was going to be an enterprise feature and now they're making it a more widely accessible feature.
That makes sense. That's an interesting observation. Yeah, I didn't connect the dots on that. Cool. I'll keep an eye out on that. And one more hangover from reInvent. I was just checking today a little bit, was an announcement that Lambda functions can scale up to 12 times faster in units of up to 1,000 concurrent executions every 10 seconds. And then after 3,000, it scales at a smaller increment, I'm guessing to reduce the impact of potential DOS attacks, but I guess I didn't realize that the numbers were 12 times lower than this previously. All right. Any other announcements, potentially hangovers from reInvent? Anybody who was at reInvent want to share some highlights of their experience there?
I got one thing out of there that not an official announcement, but I heard from an EKS engineer and the EKS project manager that they're going to be adding the AWS auth config map control to the EKS API. It's supposed to be coming soon. They wouldn't promise a date, but that'll be really useful. It'll give you the ability to, when you create an EKS cluster, to define a principal to be the owner instead of it just defaulting to whoever's executing.
Yeah, that's been a popular one. I remember seeing someone comment from the AWS team somewhere, I think on one of those open issues on the roadmap or something.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure I actually saw either an announcement or like it's coming soon in writing somewhere too about that just recently, like either right before reInvent or during reInvent. I don't remember. So
very cool. I bet they were probably trying to get it ready for reInvent and just couldn't make the deadline. So hopefully it'll be in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. That'll be a welcome addition. Let's see in the Zoom chat here, if anything. This was what you were talking about, Matt. Craig shared a link, I think.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And I assume that that will be melded with the golden signals dashboard thing at some point. Like now they're basically they're allowing you now to take kind of like a sort of service oriented view, or business logic view, or however you want to look at it, like over your applications. So
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move into Q&A. Any questions that we can get answered today? This is open-ended. If you're Matt, do you want to ask your question that you're grappling with? See if anyone
no,
still.
I resolved it.
Oh, you resolved it? Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. The one thing I was going to bring up is that I noticed today, the Amazon Q, the piece that's built into the console, at least, I don't know, they've made it so hard to figure out how to talk about any of their products right now. But you can now when you're in the reachability analyzer, like if you're doing things with transit gateways and global networks and all those things that get pretty complex, which I'm knee deep in the middle of right now, you can actually in Q say, why can't I SSH into my instance from this VPC to that VPC? And it will basically like spin up a reachability thing to tell you what the problem is, like, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I could see how that'll enable triaging a lot more. Also, really interesting. I mean, that's got to be a precursor to a lot of these other things. I mean, maybe, obviously, one reason they might be investing in what was it called? The signals, CloudWatch signals, is to take a piece of the Datadog pie back into CloudWatch, which makes a lot of financial sense, especially since they're struggling scaling. But maybe another reason is also so they can provide more of those kind of capabilities within Amazon to understand what's going on. And in order to do that, they have to have the data. You have to be doing the monitoring there. And that'd be a really awesome improvement.
Yeah. Like, why is my HR application slow?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it can tell you, since you've now defined what the HR application is in that myApplications dashboard, and you're now monitoring all the golden signals with that, the CloudWatch and all of its things, it can start to give you insights into those types of answers. Pretty interesting. And then it can and then leading on to that, eventually be able to self-heal, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah. This is the thing Amazon desperately needs to become a little bit easier for customers.
Yeah.
Craig says that he was also just trying the reachability analyzer in Amazon Q today. Probably the most useful thing about Q. He thinks they call it the reachability insights.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. Before I would use that, I would have to click like 13, 15 times to set up all the different like from and tos and all of that kind of thing. And half the time I would fat finger something or select the wrong instance or do whatever. And now you can just ask it a question and kind of iterate with it, which it's definitely useful.
I'll have to try that out because I thought I was the only one, but I have never successfully used the reachability analyzer, and it made me feel really stupid because after a while I just gave up and just did it manually, like tried to debug the issues, but I don't know. I'll try the Q version.
Yeah,
Next.
it helped me. It helped me today. I've been able to do it before, but usually I'd say on average, I probably have to do it, 1.7 times before I get it right or something like that. Like it's definitely not that intuitive.
All right, Tim G has a question. Is there a recommended way to route private IPs of a load balancer? We'd like to route internal traffic direct to the Amazon load balancer instead of going out through our NAT and back via the internet gateway just to hit the same ALB. I believe private IPs could be looked up off the network interfaces. Ideally, it would be nice if there was a DNS name that mapped to private IPs. As well as the DNS name that maps to the public IPs. I expected this to be easier. So actually, every Amazon load balancer has, when you resolve the Amazon name to that load balancer and you're using the 169 dot whatever resolver inside your cluster, your instances or whatever, it will automatically resolve to the internal IPs. And automatically resolve to the external IPs if you're outside of AWS. And then if you set your DNS names as a CNAME to that load balancer name, or you're using alias records, I presume alias records would work the same way. CNAMEs definitely work, but alias records should do that too. Oh, .2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's right. Yeah.
I was going to say that it's .2 on whatever subnet you're on.
Yeah. Can correct me. My knowledge might be out of date. Just for my own intellectual curiosity. The IMDS endpoint, that IP. I thought that IP can also be used as a DNS resolver. Am I wrong on that?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, the IDMS thing is it's an HTTP endpoint, but maybe they also have some way of resolving over that. I don't know.
Mark says that he's seen it work cross region, but not cross account. I can't testify to that. I don't recall.
Well, how do you have like a VPC peering or transit gateway or something between the two accounts? Transit gateway. Okay. Yeah. Your transit gateway has to be enabled for DNS. That's actually an option for transit gateway. That's one of the things. I haven't specifically tried that scenario, but that's the only thing I could think of that never understood that. But I think that's what that transit gateway thing is for.
I have some questions. One is based on reInvent. I had heard about Lattice earlier on, I think, at Reinforce or something, and they brought it up again quite a bit at the most recent reInvent. Does anyone know anyone that is actually using Lattice in production?
Well, I recall saying last year this was the most exciting announcement to come out of reInvent for me, and I'm still really excited about it. But yeah, I'm still on the armchair on this one.
Yeah, I wasn't brave enough. I should have asked the presenter, hey, do you actually have any customers using this in production? My other question is around
They have 4 case studies on the Lattice website of like companies that are actually using it and people like actual names behind it. So you could probably track one of them down and ask a question if you really wanted to know.
Good to know.
Here, I'll drop it in. I'll drop it in the chat. There it is.
My other question is around EKS and multi-region. I'm looking into what this might look like for my org. And one of the things I saw was this article around the cell-based architecture as like sort of a different way to do multi-region than the way people used to do it before. Has anyone seen that article or has experience with what is being referenced in that? I pasted a link in the chat to the article on the find.
I can guess what the difference is, because you used to be able to like federate your Kubernetes clusters so that actually the Kubernetes itself was aware of the other clusters versus truly making them share nothing and then maybe putting a load balancer in front, like a global accelerator. But is that what this says?
Yeah, that diagram of what they're showing now is that's AZs in the same region. And then the supercells, I guess, is the thing that is showing cross region, right? Interesting.
I mean, I mean, it could be across regions or it could be across availability zones. I mean, one of the key things they show here is that this is a dedicated cluster, dedicated cluster, dedicated cluster. In each AZ, a standalone cluster. But I'm not understanding that the load balancer here is only going to one of them.
I think it's going to all of them.
Okay.
I think that's what the cell routing layer is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that we've implemented similar ones with a global accelerator and then deploy dedicated clusters. There's no general answer. It comes down to a lot of the assumptions on your application architecture. If you have persistence requirements inside the Kubernetes cluster, your database is always going to be the weakest link. Can your database be multi-region? And if not, how do you get around that?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's definitely like everything else. It's very specific to your context. So
Yeah.
curious if someone had experience with this different way that they're showing here, because that was the global accelerator route was the route I was going to go. We already have everything set up for that. We just haven't actually gotten around to setting up the cluster in the different region that you can now link the accelerator to. So,
but this example here doesn't address the multi-region. It's the multi-AZ.
Yeah, it's up. It's if you go up above, there's like if you click that supercells, that one shows the cross region one. Yeah.
Okay, and then they're using Route 53 for cross region instead of global accelerator.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was actually a reInvent announcement about Route 53 automatic redirection of traffic based on something in a faster way than it used to do, or something like that. I can't exactly remember the thing, but there was some announcement about Route 53 and improving that. So I wonder if it's tied into something along these lines. And I'm pretty sure it was using the cell terminology. That's what reminded me of it.
One thing that I would keep in mind if you are pursuing this is the implications on your continuous delivery. And if you want your continuous delivery to be fault tolerant too. So it's all fine and dandy to deploy to 4 different clusters, you know, if they're all online, but how does it change or how is it affected if one of them is offline? And if you're using something like Argo, that gets easier.
All right. It's funny you
Maybe.
mentioned Argo because I was going to ask a question around that. We don't currently use Argo, but something that we're considering. But then it pretty much looks like, you know, you either have the option of having one main Argo cluster that is kind of like your control cluster, or having it integrated in various clusters. I love the simplicity of having it in one cluster that then goes out to the others, but I can't shake just the fear of what could happen when that one cluster goes down.
Yeah.
How
So
do I defend
there's
that position?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time on this and thinking about it, and spent more time than I care to admit on actually implementing it. There are 3 main patterns for Argo CD from my perspective. One is you have the centralized Argo CD, which knows about all of your clusters. When you have that architecture, what's nice about it is you can see, you know, the global landscape of everything and where it's getting deployed, changes getting promoted between environments, for example. The downside is, as you said, it's like the Jenkins, you know, master architecture where, you know, Jenkins goes down, your whole organization goes to lunch. And we don't want that. So the other problem with that architecture is, well, when you go to upgrade Argo CD, every single deployment in the organization goes down. So whoever wants to upgrade Argo CD when it's your neck on the line. The other problem is if you want to install plugins in Argo CD or upgrade it, you know, anything requires a restart. Wait, we have active deployments going on. No fun. So, you know, a change that you want just for testing some plugin in dev now affects the entire organization. So don't go that route. Oh, the third reason why you don't want to go that route is it's a pain in the butt to configure in an automated manner, because that Argo CD needs to have administrative permissions and manage deployments in other Kubernetes clusters. So orchestrating this whole thing so that it can manage that other Kubernetes cluster is a little bit more cumbersome. The second architecture is, well, let's have 2 or 3 Argos. We'll have one Argo CD for production tier, one for non-production. At least then you address the issue of doing some upgrades and checking things out. But you still have the problem of adding your clusters to it. So what we've settled on, and we've been happy with this decision and don't regret it, is you deploy Argo CD in each cluster that it manages, and then Argo CD just works automatically with the Kubernetes cluster. It's polling or receiving updates automatically if through webhooks when the deployment repo is updated, and synchronizes those changes.
But you do have to log into
I was
Yeah.
gonna say
and
developers don't
number
like
of Argos if you want to see it.
right. But I think it's worth it for me not losing my job in the future because I made a boneheaded architectural decision and, you know, break the company for like hours. So I don't know. We'll make the developers' lives easier in every other way, and they'll just have to have 3 bookmarks.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there. I know, you know, so one of the huge backers, corporate backers rather, of Argo CD is CodeFresh. I believe CodeFresh has come a long way since the beginning. They used to be predominantly a CI tool, and now they've predominantly become, I believe, a Argo CD front end. So one of the claim to fames for CodeFresh now is it can aggregate your Argo CDs from a dashboard or UI perspective. So if that becomes an ultimate need, then there's SaaS for that.
Thanks. That's helpful to think about.
So Adam also agrees 1 Argo per environment.
Yeah, and I've actually seen a few Grafana dashboards to kind of aggregate the view of all of your Argo application deployments across all of your clusters, or at least the ones that are important. And then you can log into just a single Grafana to see that. And then in Grafana, you can have a link that links you out to the right cluster if you need to go and view details of what happened on that.
That sounds like a good idea. Just pointing out one thing Craig pointed out, that sounds interesting. I haven't heard of that. An Argo cluster to manage Argo clusters was a popular paradigm at ArgoCon last month. So.
Just wonder if you can see like all the applications from the downstream Argo clusters. That's interesting.
Cool. Any other questions we can get answered today?
I kind of had a question about how people are doing Terraform drift detection with their Git repositories. We have a lot of Git workspaces, but we're kind of forced to do our Terraform applies from our laptops. So we kind of have this problem very frequently where people are applying things but don't forget to check in, or they check in things that aren't applied. I know this is kind of something that Atlantis is good, where you actually have a GitOps workflow that you're having Atlantis do your applies for you, but we're on that. We're sort of in a situation where we can't actually, we have to do the applies from our laptops, which isn't the greatest, but is where we're at. And we've been trying to get Atlantis to work in a mode where it can like notify a Slack channel if there's any changes that aren't applied or aren't checked in. Is there ways that people have solved this problem, or is it just kind of like you use a GitOps workflow for Terraform applies, or you're behind the 8-ball, as it were?
No, you need drift detection regardless of any of the platforms you choose. Now, a lot of the platforms implement it for you, but let's say you're using Atlantis, great. You still don't, you can still, like you alluded to, you can still forget to apply some environment, or things or environments can change, or things happen in the UI and they aren't reflected, in the Git repo, or your Terraform providers weren't pinned and now some change to the provider causes drift. There's like a million possibilities of what can cause drift. So the order of operations is interesting, where if you had drift detection, you'd probably have an easier sell to go to management that, hey, look at all these problems that we have that we didn't know about, but now that we have drift detection, we see the problem. The problem is that in order to do the drift detection, you have to have some standardization on how your some just Alexa distractions there. You have to have some visibility on what workspaces you have in Terraform, what projects you have, what repositories are doing Terraform. And oftentimes, if you're at the stage of maturity where you're doing Terraform locally, some of those standard ways of doing it haven't materialized. I'm going to pause there before I keep talking about that, but I have more to add to that. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, are people using just crafting their own kind of CICD pipelines to do it, or are people just making cron jobs that run Terraform plan and sends them the output, or what's the?
Yeah, so there are two fundamental approaches, high level, to doing this.
Seems like Alexa has an opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I have a new automation that I need to adjust there, I think. What was I going to say? I'm a little distracted. Yeah, high level. One is doing something like code coverage, where you're literally looking at your deployed infrastructure. Let's take Amazon for an example. You're looking at every single resource there, and you're trying to map that to some resource in one of your many different Terraform states. So that's the, I would say, the best kind of drift detection, because that catches things that might have been originally deployed with ClickOps and were never caught in code. So that this gives you an understanding of your true infrastructure as code coverage. There's one tool out there that does that. It's called Drift CTL, and I think it's come up so many times on office hours, but I think most recently it came up. I'm not sure if it's looking for maintainers. Yeah, so it was acquired by Sneak, and the project is now in maintenance mode. So that doesn't bode well for that project.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other way that every single other implementation does is the most straightforward and easy to do. So you could say Drift CTL, this gives you 20%, in the Pareto principle, this gives you 20% more visibility into what drifts at 80% more effort to do, versus, just run Terraform plan and, look at the exit code and then determine if you have drift that way. However, doing that is actually a lot of work. You have to know all the workspaces. You have to look at those status codes. You have to communicate and escalate that in some way. You would like to be notified sooner rather than later. So you'd like to run it like every few hours or at least once a day. But if you do a naive implementation that just sends an email or sends a Slack message, you're gonna quickly just silence all those alerts, because it's just going to be stack drifted, stack drifted, stack drifted, stack drifted, the same thing over and over again. So Cloud Posse has a solution for that. It's open source, but it assumes that you use our Atmos tooling. So Atmos is a tool that helps you define your configuration for all your Terraform as code, as YAML, and then it has workflows to run your Terraform, and it works with vanilla Terraform. It works better if you write Terraform a certain way, but it works with vanilla Terraform. And then we have integrations here with GitHub Actions, assuming you're using GitHub Actions. And the workflows for drift detection, we haven't published yet, but they're part of our Cloud Posse reference architecture. And I guess I can show a teaser kind of what that looks like oops, let's open it in Unused. So drift detection runs in this one, I believe, has some warnings here, but here's kind of an example of what drift detection might look like if you were to implement this. You'd go through, find all of your configured Terraform, run a Terraform plan, and show a summary of what changed if that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can show that we also open up the GitHub issue to track all of the drift as well.
So so you don't spam people, you open up a GitHub issue when there's drift, and then you can assign that to somebody to fix it. And if you actually want that change, you can actually apply that right here.
So this sounds like this is like a non-open part of the Cloud Posse reference architecture.
There's stuff we just don't really publish yet. I'm sure we're going to publish this soon. We just haven't gotten around to publishing and making it public. all the bits and pieces, the nuts and bolts, are all free and public. And that's what's kind of special about what we do. Absolutely everything, the building blocks are all free and public. The only thing we are a little bit delayed at publishing publicly is how we do it. So that's what we prioritize in all of our customer engagements. So at docs.cloudposse.com is where we have like all of our building blocks, our components, modules, GitHub Actions, Atmos. But our reference architecture here, this is the piece that's behind a paywall, and which is what we reserve for customers at this time. Bits and pieces of this reference architecture is what we release over time and make public, but we kind of keep the bleeding edge for customers at this time. And the GitHub Actions stuff is something we will be publishing next year, hopefully early next year. We're going to be publishing an example repository with all the workflows you need to get up and running with drift detection, Terraform, plan, apply, and all those behaviors in GitHub Actions out of the box. Any other questions we can get answered? It's yeah, so Craig was posting, it's interesting. So the security team forbids this. So the security team is the one that requires local Terraform plan and apply. And it's just interesting how two security teams can see totally opposite ways of what is the secure way of doing it.
Yeah, when your security team trusts the laptops more than they do things running in a cloud infrastructure to manage the cloud infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my guess, if you boil it all down, is they don't have a good understanding of how Terraform works, because what they're doing is definitely not the most secure way to handle like deployments to production of production infrastructure, or what they're making you do. So yeah, things like being able to see plans and then do approvals, and then have the exact plan that you approved be the thing that actually gets deployed to your production environment, is definitely more secure than letting Craig do whatever he wants in production, by just running Terraform applying. No offense, Craig, but it's just like not a well understood thing, would be my guess.
Yeah. I was trying to find, there's a famous post-mortem on some crypto company, some Web3 company that was hacked. And it was ultimately because one of the admins whose laptop was compromised was the weakest link. And they didn't figure that out in time, out of frustration. Like they realized they were hacked, money was stolen. They re-provisioned everything, hacked again. They thought it was maybe the AMIs. So I think they started over in a whole new Amazon account or something, or a whole new cloud account, compromised because the attacker just kept going through the laptop.
Yeah, that scenario was that one of the admin's credentials was leaked, so they kept using the same keys over and over again.
But I believe they'd like enabled like RDP or something on his laptop, and they were able to even, yeah, ultimately it was a credential theft, and then some.
Yeah, we've addressed that situation by being absolutely rabid about key rotation.
Yeah, and hopefully MFA as well.
Yes, yeah, of course. We in general try to avoid even using AWS secret keys and access IDs when possible, and rely on things like SSO and identity center and instance profiles and etc. So we don't even have credentials to leak.
That is ideal.
So if we have 2 minutes and no one else has something else, I'll just bring up a story I heard just recently, but I guess it happened a few years ago. I had never heard of this. That do you know Ant Design, which is like it's like a React design library that I don't know has like over 80,000 stars on GitHub, and obviously like a ton of different people use it. So apparently, the developers or a developer decided to put in an Easter egg, quote unquote, but it was like a Christmas egg, where if the date was December 25th, that it would change all the labels on buttons to say ho 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 or something like that. And it got leaked into the actual code base, and like all these major retailers and people that were using it, like every one of their buttons on their website said ho 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 on December 25th, and people were freaking out because they had no idea like where it was coming from or how it happened. And the answer, that their official answer was that they intentionally put it in there, and if you didn't want that to be the case, that you should target your CSS to like remove the extra CSS tag that they put on there only on December 25th. To add this thing. Like they had one of the worst responses I've ever seen. But I actually didn't hear it happening when it actually happened, but someone I know just pointed out to me recently, and I was kind of shaking my head like, I can't believe that this actually happened. So I don't know. It's like people do wacky things. So never trust anything you don't have to trust, I guess. That's the lesson of the story.
Yeah. Was there a news post on that?
I saw it I Googled it and I found it on like Reddit. Like Reddit actually talked about it. But it was like 5 years ago, it says, when it actually happened. But I just heard I just dropped it in the chat, the Reddit post about it. But I just heard about it recently. And I couldn't believe that was true. And if you look through the whole thing, it has like the code, and you can actually dig through to the code and find the commit and who who did it, and everything else. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. Yeah. So imagine you've developed with this system, and then you have some major like retailer, using it, like Best Buy or someone, and then people go to shop on Christmas Day, and all the buttons say ho ho ho.
Yeah. With some people running. All right. Well, thanks everyone for participating today. We are at time. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel or would like to share this session with your team, the best way is to go to youtube.com/cloudposse and subscribe. You'll get updates when there's a new video. For those of you joining through our YouTube channel or a recording, such as our podcast, you can register for these sessions live at cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, cloudposse.com/officehours. Our podcast is just a syndication of office hours, so you can listen to it, catch up on past episodes. However you listen to podcasts, go to podcast.cloudposse.com. Lastly, if you're interested in working with Cloud Posse and seeing if we can move the needle for you at your organization, just go to cloudposse.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and you'll book a session with me directly. Thanks, everyone, and see you all next week. Same time, same place.